Republic Act number 6713, an act establishing a code of conduct and ethical standard for public officials and employees to uphold the time-honored principle of the public office being a public trust, granted incentives and rewards for exemplary service, enumerating prohibited acts and transactions, and providing penalties for violations thereof and for other purposes, be it enacted by a Senate and House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress and Assembly. So Section 1, titled, "This Act shall be known as the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees." Section 2, Declaration of Policies. It is the policy of the Senate It is the policy of the Senate to promote an high standard of ethics of public service. Public officials and employees shall at all times accountable to the people and shall discharge their duties with utmost responsibility, integrity, competence, and loyalty. Act with patriotism and justice, lead modest lives, and upholds public interest over personal interest. So, Section 3, Definition of Terms. As used in this Act, the terms government included the national government, the local government, and all others instrumentalities against our agency and branches to the Republic of the Philippines, including government owned to control corporation of their subsidiaries. Public officials includes elected and appointed officials and employees, permanent or temporary, whether in the career or non-career service, included military and police personnel, wherever or not they receive compensation regardless of amount. Gift refers to a thing that a right dispose of gratuitously or any act of liberty in favor of another who accept it, and shall include a simulated sale or an ostensibly onerous disposition thereof. It shall not include an unsolicited gift of nominal or insignificant values not given in anticipation of or in exchange for a favor from the public officials or employees. D. Receiving any gift included the act of accepting directly, indirectly, a gift from the person other than a member of his family or relative as defined of this act, even in the occasion of a family celebration, a national festivity like Christmas, if the value of the gift neither nominal or insignificant, or the gift is given in anticipation of or exchange for a favor. Letter A. Loan. Cover both simple loan and accommodations, as well as guarantees, financing arrangement of accommodation intended to ensure its approval. So letter F. Substantial stakeholders. means any person who owns directly or indirectly shares of stock sufficient to elect a director or a corporation. This term shall also apply to the parties to voting trust. So and G, family of a public officials and employees means their spouse and married children under 18 years of age. Letter I, conflict of interest arise with a public official or employees is a member of board, an officer or substantial stockholders of a private corporation or owner of has a substantial interest in a business and the interest of such corporation of business. It has rights to duties therein may be opposed to effective by the faithful performance of official duty. So on G, divestment is the transfer of title, disposal of interest or property by voluntarily, completely, and actually depriving of this disposition as positioning oneself of his right over a title to a favor of persons or persons other than his spouse of relatives defined of this act. So on letter K, relatives refers to any and all persons related to the public officials or employees with the fourth of civil degree of consanguinity or infinity included and so section 4, norms of conduct and public officials and employees. Every public officials and employee shall observe the following as standard: a personal of conduct in the discharge and execution of official duties. So letter A, commitment to public interest. Public officials and employees shall always uphold the public interest over the above personal interest. All government resources and powers of their respected offices must be employed and used efficiently, effectively, honestly, and economically, particularly to avoid wasted in the public funds and revenues. Letter B, professionalism. Public officials and employees shall perform and discharge their duties with the highest degree of excellence, professionalism, intelligence, and skill. They shall enter public service with utmost devotion and dedication to duty. They shall endeavor to discourage wrong perception of their roles as dispensers or peddlers of undue patronage. So letter C, justness and sincerity. Public officials and employee shall remain true to the principle at all the times. They must act with justness and sincerity, shall not discriminate against anyone, especially the poor of the underprivileged. They shall at all times respect the rights of others and shall refrain from doing acts contrary to law, good morals, good custom, public policy, public order, public safety, and public interest. They shall not be desperate or extend out to favor an account of their office to their relatives, whether by consanguinity or impunity except with respect to appointment of such relatives to position considered strictly confidential or as members of their personal staff whose terms are coterminous with theirs. Letter D. Political neutrality. Public officials and employees shall provide service to everyone without unfair discriminations and regardless of party affiliations to preference. Letter A. Responsiveness to the public. Public officials and employees shall extend prompt, continuous, and adequate service to the public unless otherwise provided by law or with required with the public interest. Public officials and employees shall provide information of their policies and procedure in clear and understandable language, ensure openness and informations, public consultation and hearings whenever appropriate, encourage suggestion, simplify and systematize policies, rules and procedures, avoid red tape and develop understanding and appreciation of the economic conditions prevailing in the country, especially to the depressed rural and urban areas. So letter F. Nationalism and patriotism. Public officials and employees shall at all times be loyal to the Republic and to the Filipino peoples, promote the use of locality, produce goods, resources and technologies, and encourage appreciations and pride of the country and the people. They shall endeavor to maintain and defend Philippine sovereignty against foreign intrusions. Letter G. Commitment to democracy. Public officials and employees shall commit themselves in the democratic way to the life of values, maintain the principles of the public accountability, and manifest by deeds the supremacy of civilians' authority over the military. They shall at all times uphold the constitutions and put loyalty to the country above loyalty to the person or party. Letter H. Simple living. Public officials and employees and their families and lead modest lives appropriate to their possessions and incomes. They shall not indulge in extravagant and or ostentatious display of wealth in any form. Letter B. The Civil Service Commission shall adopt positive measures to promote 1. Observance of this standard and included the dissemination of information, program, and workshop authorizing merit increase beyond regular progression steps. to a limited number of employees recognized by their offices, colleges to be outstanding of their observance and ethical standard. And number 2, continuing research and experimentations on measures which provides positive motivations to the public officials and employees in raising the general level of observance of the standards. That's all of section 4. So continue to section 5, duty of the public officials and employees. In the performance of their duties, all public officials and employees are under obligation to: letter A, act promptly on letters and requests. All public officials and employees shall within 15 working days from receipt thereof respond to the letters, telegrams, or other means of communication sent by public. The reply must contain the action taken on the request. Letter B, submit annual performance reports. All heads or others responsible officer of offices and agency of the government and of government-owned or controlled corporation shall within 45 working days from the end of the year render the performance report to the agency or office or corporation concerned. Such reports shall be open to available to the public within regular office hours. So letter C, process documents and papers expeditiously, and all officials papers and documents must be proceed and completed within a reasonable time from the preparation thereof, and must contain as far as so letter C, process of documents and papers expeditiously. All officials papers and documents must be proceed to the completely within reasonable time from the preparation thereof, must contain as far as not more than 3 signatories therein. In the absence of duty authorized signatories, the official next in rank or officer in charge shall sign for and in their behalf. So letter D, act immediately on a public personnel transaction. All public officials and employees must attend to anyone who wants to avail himself of the service of their offices, and must at all times act promptly and expeditiously. Letter E, make documents accessible to the public. All public documents must be made accessible to and readily available for inspection by the public within reasonable working hours. The section 6, system of incentives and rewards. A system or annual incentives and rewards is hereby established in order to motivate and inspire public servants to uphold the highest standards of ethics. For this purpose, a committee on award to outstanding public officials and employees is hereby created, composed to the following: the Ombudsman and chairman of the Civil Service Commissions and co-chairman, and the chairman of the Commissions of Audit, and the 2 government employees to be appointed by the President as a members. It shall be the task of this committee to conduct a periodic continuing review of the performance of the public officials and employees at all the branches of agency governments and establish a system of annual incentives and rewards to the end and due recognize is given to the public officials and employees of outstanding merit to the basis of the standards set forth in this act. The conferment of award shall take into account, among other things, the following: the years of service and the quality of consistency, the performance of, of security of the position, the level of salary, the unique and exemplary quality of a certain achievement, and the rest of temptations inherent in the work, incentives, and rewards the government's officials and employees of the year, to be announced in the public ceremonies, honoring them by take the, the form of bonuses, citations, directorship, and government-owned or controlled corporations, local and foreign scholarship, grants, paid vacation, and the like. These shall likewise and automatically promote the next higher positions with the commensurate salary suitable to their qualification. In case there is no next higher position or it is not vacant, said position shall be included to the budget of the office in the next General Appropriations Act. The Committee on Awards shall adopt its own rules so govern the conduct of its activities. Continue to Section 7, Prohibited Acts and Transaction. In addition to acts and omissions to the public officials and employees not prescribed in the constitutions and existing laws, the following shall constitute prohibited acts and transactions of any public officials and employees and are hereby declared to be unlawful. So letter A, financial and material interest. Public officials and employees shall not directly or indirectly have any financial or material interest in any transaction requiring approval of their offices. Letter B, outside employment and other activities related public officials and employees during their incumbencies shall not. So letter number 1, own, control, manage, and accept employment as officer, employee, and consultant counsel, broker, agent, trustee, or nominee in any private enterprise regulated, supervised, or licensed by their offices. Number 1, own, control, manage, or accept employment as officer, employee, consultant, counsel, broker, agent, trustee, and nominee in any private enterprise regulated, supervised, or licensed by their offices, unless expressly allowed by law. Number 2, engage in a private practice and their professions unless authorized by the constitutions or law, provided that such practice will not complete or tend to conflict with their officials' function. Or, so number 3, recommend any persons to any position in a private enterprise which has the regular or funding officials transaction with their office. So these provisions shall continue to apply for a period on 1 year after resignation, retirement, or separation from public offices except in the case of subparagraph letter B. Number 2, above but the professional concerns cannot practice his professions in connections with any matter before the office he used to be with, in which case the 1 year provisions shall likewise apply. So letter C, disclosure and or misuse or confidential informations. Public officials and employees shall not divulge confidential or classified information, especially known to them by reason of their office and not made available in a public either. So number 1, to further their private interests or gives undue advantage to anyone, or number 2, to prejudice the public interest. So in letter D, solicitation or acceptance of gifts. Public officials and employees shall not solicit or accept directly or indirectly any gift, gratuity, favor, entertainment, loan, or anything or monetary value from the persons in the course of this official's duties or in connection with any operations being regulated by or any transaction which may be effected by the function of their office. As to gifts or grants from foreign government, the Congress consents the acceptance and retentions by the public officials and employees of a gifts of nominal value tendered and received as a souvenir or mark or courtesy. The acceptance by the public officials or employee of a gift of the natures of a scholarship or fellowship, grant or medical treatment, or the acceptance by the public officials or employees of travel grants and expenses for travel taking place entirely outside of the Philippines, such as allowance, transportations, food, and lodging, or of more than nominal value if such acceptance appropriate or consistent in the interests of the Philippines, and permitted by the head of office, branch of agency to which he belongs. The Ombudsman shall prescribe such regulations as may be necessary to carry out the purpose of these subsections, included pertinent reporting as disclosure requirements. Nothing of this act shall be construed to restrict or prohibit any educational, scientific, or cultural exchange program subject and national security requirements. Continue to Section 8. A statement and disclosure. Public officials and employees have the obligation to accomplish and submit declarations under oath of, and the public has the right of issue, the right to know their assets, liabilities, network, and financials and business interests, including those their spouse and of unmarried children under 18 years of age living of their household. A statement of assets and liabilities and financial disclosure. All public officials and employees, except those who serve the honorary capacity, laborers of casual or temporarily workers, shall file under oath their statement of assets, liability, and network and disclosure of business interests and financial connections, and thus their spouse are unmarried and under 18 years of age of living of their household. So continue. The two documents shall contain informations on the following. So letter A, real property. Its improvements, acquisitions, cost, assessed value and current fair market value. Letter B, personal property and acquisition cost. Letter C, all other assets such as investment, cash, or hand of the beneath stocks. Unlike D, liabilities and letter A, all business and interests and financial connection. The documents must be filed. Letter A, within 30 days after assumptions of office. Letter B, on the before April 30 of every year thereafter. And letter C, within 30 days after separation from the service. All public officials and employees required under these sections to file the documents shall also execute within 30 days from the date of their assumptions of office the necessary authority in favor of Ombudsman to obtain from all appropriate government agencies, including the Bureau of Internal Revenue, such the documents as may show their assets, liabilities, network, and also their business interests and financial connections in previous years, including their possible and year when the first assumed any office in the government. Husband and wife, who are both public officials and employees, may file the required statement jointly or separately. The statement of assets, liabilities, and network of the disclosure of the business interest and financial connection shall be filed by number 1, constitutionals and nationals elected officials with the National Office of the Ombudsman. Number 2, senators and congressmen with the secretaries of the Senate and the House of the Representatives, respectively, justice with the clerk of the Court of Supreme Judge, with the court administrator, and all national executive officials with the office of the President. Number 3, regional and local officials and employees with the Deputy Ombudsman of their respective regions. Number 4, officers of the Armed Forces of the Philippine Armed Forces from the rank Colonel, Naval Captain with the office of the President, and those below the ranks with the Deputy Ombudsman of their respective region. And number 5, all other public officials and employees defined the Republic Act number 3019 as amended, and the Civil Service Commissions. Letter B, identifications and disclosure of relatives. It shall be the duty of every public officials or employee to identify and disclose to the best of his knowledge and informations his relatives in government in the form manner frequently prescribed by the Civil Service Commission. Letter C, accessibility of documents. 1. Any and all statement filed under this act shall be made available for inspection and reasonable hours. So number 2, such statement shall be made available for copying or reproductions other than 10 working days from time they are filed to require by law. So number 3, any person requesting of copy of a statement shall be required to pay a reasonable pay to cover the cost of reproduction and mailing to such statement, as well as the cost of certification. So number 4, any statement filed under this act shall be available to the public for a period of 10 years. After receipt and the statement after such period, the statement may be destroyed unless needed in ongoing investigation. So letter D, providing acts. It shall be unlawful for any persons to obtain or use any statement filed under this act for letter A, any purpose contrary to morals in a public policy, or letters B, any commercial purpose other than by news and communications media for this communication of the general public. To Section 9, divestment. So divestment, the public officials or employee shall avoid conflict of interest at all times. When a conflict or interest arises, he shall resign from his position in any private business enterprises within 30 days from the assumptions of office, and or divest themselves of his shareholders or interest within 60 days from such assumptions. The same rule shall apply where the public officials or employees is parties in the partnership. So the requirements of divestment shall not apply to those who serve the government in a honorary capacity, nor to laborers or casual temporary workers. So continue to Section 10, review and compliance procedure. So letter A, the designated committees of both houses of the Congress shall establish procedures for the review of a statement of determining whether said statements which have been submitted on time and complete are the proper form of the event. Determinations is made, the statement is not so filed, the appropriate committee shall so inform the reporting individual, direct him to take the necessary corrective action. Letter B. In order to carry out the responsibility under this act, the designated committees of both houses of Congress shall have the power within the respected jurisdictions and render any opinions interpreting this act in writing to persons covered of this act, subject of its instance to the approved by the affirmative vote of the majority of the particular house concerned. So the individuals who own an opinions is rendered and any other individuals involved in any similar function, situations, and who after issuance of the opinions acts of good faith or accordance with it shall not be subject to any sanction provided of this act. So letter C, the heads of other offices shall perform the duties state subsections A and B hereof insofar as their respected offices are concerned, subject to the approval of the Secretaries of Justice in the case of the Executive Department and the Chief of Justice of the Supreme Court in the case of the Judicial Department. So continue to Section 10 or Section 11, the penalties. A. Any public officials or employee, regardless of whether or not he holds office or employment in a casual, temporary, holdover, permanent, or regular capacity, committing any violation of this act shall be punished with the fine not exceeding the equivalent of 6 months' salary or suspension, not exceeding of 1 year, or removal depending of the gravity of the office after due notice of hearing the appropriate body or agency if the violation is punishable by the heavier penalty under another law shall be prosecuted under the latter statutes. Violation of Section 7, 8, 9 of this act shall be punishable with the imprisonment not exceeding 5 years or fine not exceeding 5,000 pesos or both, and in the discretions of the court of competent jurisdictions, disqualifications to hold public office. Letter B. Any violation hereof proven in a proper administrative proceeding shall be sufficient cause for removal or dismissal of the public officials or employees, even if no criminal prosecutions are instituted against him. And letter C. Private individuals who participate conspiracy as co-principals, accomplice, or accessory with the public officials or employees in violation of this act be subject to the same penal liabilities as the public officials or employees and shall be tried jointly with them. So in letter D, the official or employees concerned by bring actions against him, against person who obtains or used to report for any purpose prohibited by Section 8D of this Act, The court in which such actions is brought may assess against which persons penalties any amount not to exceed 25,000 pesos if another sanctions hereunder or under any other laws heavier the latter shall apply.
Nagpula naman ito. Nagkuhan pa ito. Storage naman.
Storage naman eh.
Ito daw. Nasave ito.
Ta. Okay.
Kaya nagkakuhan.
Storage.
Kaya ka minuto.
Kutob lang ko dili. 3 minutes. So continue to section 12. Promulgation of rules and regulation administrations and enforcement of this act. So the Civil Service Commission shall have the primary responsibility for the administrations and enforcement of this act. It shall transmit all cases for prosecutions arising from violations of this act to the proper authority for appropriate actions, provided, however, that it may institute such administrative actions and disciplinary measures as may be warranted in accordance with law. Nothing of these provisions shall be construed of deprivations of the right of its House of Congress of the discipline its members for disorderly behavior. The Civil Service Commissions is hereby authorized to promulgate the rules of regulations necessary to carry out the provisions of this act, including the guidelines.
Senda kita. Mamana niya problema.
For individuals who render the free voluntary service to the government, the ombudsman shall likewise take steps to protect citizens who denounce acts or omissions of public officials and employees which are the violation of this act.
Kaon.
So continue. Section 13, provisions for more stringent standards. Nothing of this act shall be construed to derogate from any laws or any regulations prescribed by any body or agencies which provide for more stringent standards for its officials and employees. So continue to section 14, appropriations. The sum necessary for the effective implementations of this act shall be taken from the appropriations of the Civil Service Commissions. Thereafter, such sum as may be needed for its continued implementations shall be included in the annual general appropriations. Appropriations Act So continue to section 15, separability clause. In any provisions of this act or the application of such provisions to any provisions or circumstances is declared invalid, the remainder of the act or application of such provisions to other persons or circumstances shall not be affected by such declarations. So continue to section 16, repealing clause. All laws, decrees, and orders to parts thereof inconsistent herewith are deemed repealed or modified accordingly, unless the same provide for the heavier penalty. So continue to Section 17, Effectivity. This act shall take effect after 30 days following the completions of its publications in the official's gazette or in two national newspaper of the general circulations. Approved February 20 in 1989.